Tuesday, July 17th, 1984. A local disco has scheduled a breakdancing contest for that evening. Angelo and his crew spend the day practicing, while Angelo's kid sister, Angela, tags along.
She was definitely an athletic girl for a young age, headstrong. She kept me on my toes.
Around 4 p.m., practice breaks up, and the kids scatter. Angelo goes inside to clean up for the night's contest. His sister sets out on foot for a nearby mall. That night at the disco, she's a no-show.
And then when we got home and my mother started making phone calls and we were looking around the neighborhood, not around the neighborhood, but on the block, asking around if anyone had seen her, and the phone calls, we were getting nowhere with the phone calls. I guess concern really set in then.
My gut feeling was there was something seriously wrong.
Angela's father joins local cops in the search for his daughter.
As the morning pressed on, more police officers came, and my heart started just, getting tighter and tighter and tighter.
Shortly after 11 a.m., police scanners crackled to life. Just a few hundred yards from the tidy bungalows of Camp Road, Officer Linda Curtis has made a discovery in the woods.
When I first saw it, I thought it was a mannequin. And when I took a harder look, I realized it was a body.
The body is that of a young girl, partially clothed, lying face down beneath a log at the edge of the pond. She is pulled from the swamp and taken to the morgue, where her father is waiting to make a positive ID.
There's a certain essence, there's a certain feeling when you walk into a ME's office. And as soon as I walked in, I had that dreaded feeling. And there was an ME there with the body of my daughter in front of me.
Nassau County Medical Examiner Leslie Lukash performs the autopsy on Angela Wong.
The cause of death here was determined to be drowning, homicidal drowning. She was beaten about the face by blunt force, probably by a fist, and she sustained these myriad of contusions and abrasions.
Despite the fact that Angela was found partially naked, her body yields no evidence of rape. Nassau County Detective Jack Sharkey picks up the case. He begins by constructing a timeline of Angela Wong's last day on Earth.
She had gotten up kind of late that day, around 12 noon. And we had her activity right down until 4:30 when she was last seen, heading off towards the mall.
The detective pounds the pavement, looking for the answer to a simple question. Who was the last known person to see Angela Wong alive? After hundreds of leads, tips, and interviews, the trail leads right back to the victim's inner circle of family and friends.
We zeroed in on that breakdancing team, and also the 5 youths who really hung out in the Angela Wong household.
One by one, members of the breakdancing team are interviewed and asked to account for their whereabouts between 4:30 and 5, the time when Angela was most likely murdered. All are cleared save one. Manny Pacheco is a 15-year-old friend of Angela Wong and self-styled ladies' man.
Manny says that he leaves alone, and he started walking north towards his house. And at some point, he turns and looks back, and he says that he sees Angela walking with another young youth, who only described as wearing a black cut-off T-shirt.
Pacheco can provide no further details about the mysterious teenager in the black T-shirt. Pacheco claims he spent the next hour getting cleaned and dressed for the breakdancing contest. It is a statement that cannot be corroborated, and one that leaves a veteran detective feeling uneasy.
The thing that bothered me was Manny basically was the last one to see her. 2, I also learned that he was the only one who did not participate the next day coming back to the household to look for her. Even though it had been raining out, there was 6 or 7, or there was a group of 8 kids went into those woods. They split up 4 and 4, right? But there was no Manny.
Adding to Sharkey's suspicions the location of the crime scene. Angela's body was found near a well-worn shortcut to the mall. According to friends and family, it is a trail that Angela never would have walked alone or with a stranger.
I knew my sister very well. I knew what she felt about those woods and going back there by herself. It never happened. Her going back there with someone we trusted, she trusted, especially a male figure, absolutely.
Suspicions aside, investigators have nothing solid on Manny Pacheco or anyone else for that matter. As time passes, leads dry up, and the murder of Angela Wong drops into the cold files. 6 years later, Sharkey decides to give the case a fresh look. Buried in the files, he comes upon a bit of information, perhaps overlooked or misunderstood in 1984. It is the eyewitness account of a local neighborhood girl placing Manny Pacheco with the victim not far from the woods where her body was found.
And approximately at 4:20, she positively identifies Manny Pacheco and Angela Wong walking together, going into that entrance into the backwoods. No doubt about it in her mind.
Sharkey tracks down the girl, who tells Sharkey she remembers that day because it was the day before her 13th birthday. She remembers the time because she was on her way to see a 4:30 showing of the film Gremlins. And she remembers Manny Pacheco because she, like so many other neighborhood girls, had a crush on him.
So I wanted to brace Manny with all those. Of course, naturally, he just denied she was mistaken. I said, not really mistaken because of the fact that she knew you, even to the point she knew what beautiful brown eyes you had.
Kuhn runs a criminal history and finds Pacheco living in California on the wrong side of the law.
And I found out that he had 2 orders of protection against him out in California. And those orders of protection involved women that he was living with.
An order of protection is something that, it's another name for it's a restraining order.
LAPD detectives Mike Burcham and Eric Mosher are conducting a separate investigation of Manny Pacheco on charges of battery and molestation. They helped Detective Kuhn fill in the blanks with regards to Pacheco's legal troubles in the City of Angels.
In this case, it was an order that was to Manny Pacheco from one of his girlfriends that said you are not to be within a certain distance, you are not to have contact, you are not to call. And those things usually stem from some type of domestic violence kind of situation.
And he told me Manny was living with 2 women. He abused both of them, according to the women. And that he'd also been accused of abusing his own 9-year-old daughter. Now that piqued my interest. You know, we have an 11-year-old girl who was apparently abused and murdered, and now he's allegedly abusing his own daughter.
So our plan was to go out and find these people and interview them and start sort of building a profile on what Manny Pacheco was all about.
He was very physically abusive.
Meet Raluca. After one particularly brutal beating, Raluca tells police Pacheco was overcome with remorse, and his apologies suddenly morphed into a murder confession.
That was the first time he mentioned Angela and sort of referenced her and was kind of like, well, you know, it was, you know, I don't know why I do these things. Something comes over me. And it was like when I killed my cousin, you know. And he just began to talk about it like it was what he had for breakfast that morning.
On that occasion, Raluca tells police Pacheco offered up a tearful, detailed confession to the murder of Angela Wong. 10 months later, the topic surfaced again when Raluca tried to leave Manny. This time, according to the witness, Pacheco's mood was far more sinister.
This time, he was using Angela in a threatening way. You know, I killed my cousin. What makes you think I won't kill you?
Raluca's statement provides cold case detectives with enough probable cause to finally arrest Manny Pacheco. Hoping to hear a confession from the suspect's own mouth, Detective Kuhn sits down with Pacheco and a picture of Angela Wong.
And I showed him that picture of Angela. He became very belligerent. I know nothing about her. Why are you asking me about her? And to the point where he stood up a couple of times. He wasn't cuffed in the room, so we had to tell him, you know, you got to calm down, you have to sit down, or you're going to have to be handcuffed, you know.
Pacheco stiff-arms police and calls for a lawyer. The ladies' man pleads not guilty and decides to take his chances in court. After only 7 hours of deliberation, a Nassau County jury agrees with Hayden and finds Manny Pacheco guilty of the murder of Angela Wong. Because Pacheco was a juvenile at the time of the crime, he receives a sentence of 9 years to life.